Your support keeps these stories alive. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell.
Weddings are supposed to bring families together, not tear them apart. At least, that's what I always believed. Growing up, I dreamed about my wedding being a day of love, laughter, and unity. But when it finally became my turn to walk down the aisle, I discovered that the person I should have been able to count on the most, my own sister, was the one who would betray me in ways I never thought possible. The tension between us started months before my wedding date was even set. My sister had gotten engaged 2 years earlier. She wanted a lavish ceremony, the kind you see in glossy bridal magazines, with a ballroom reception, a designer gown, and hundreds of guests. The problem was, she didn't have the money to make it happen. Our parents helped as much as they could, but even with their contributions, the numbers didn't add up. She came to me, practically begging, insisting that as her younger sister, it was my duty to help her. She asked me for $20,000. I was stunned. $20,000 wasn't pocket change. It was a huge sum, especially for me at the time. I had savings, sure, but that money was for my future, for a house one day, for emergencies. Lending her that kind of money would have gutted me financially. I told her gently that I couldn't do it, that I'd help in other ways, planning, decorating, even contributing what I reasonably could. But that wasn't enough for her. She threw a fit, accused me of being selfish, of not caring about her happiness. The cracks in our relationship started there. She went ahead with a smaller wedding, cutting corners wherever she could, but the resentment toward me lingered. She brought it up at family dinners, in phone calls, in casual conversations, always reminding me that she had to settle because I wouldn't step up. I tried to brush it off, but deep down it hurt. She wasn't just upset about money, she was blaming me for her own disappointments. Fast forward a year later when I announced my own engagement. At first, she seemed supportive. She smiled, hugged me, even offered to help with planning. But beneath the surface, I could feel the bitterness. Every suggestion she made was laced with comparisons to her own wedding. Don't pick a dress that expensive mine wasn't. You don't really need that many guests, remember how we managed? Be careful with flowers, they add up. And you know I didn't get the ones I wanted. It was like she couldn't let go of the past. Still, I pushed forward. My fiancé and I had saved carefully, and with some help from his family, we were able to plan the wedding we truly wanted. Nothing outrageous, nothing over the top, but elegant, meaningful, and ours. The closer the date came, the more excited I felt. But at the same time, I started noticing strange things happening around me. Vendors calling to confirm cancellations for services I never canceled. A dress alteration appointment mysteriously rescheduled without my knowledge. Rumors reaching my friends that the wedding might be postponed. At first, I thought it was just miscommunication, but as the incidents piled up, a gnawing suspicion began to form in my chest. And then came the night that confirmed everything. I received an email from our venue, thanking me for informing them that we were downsizing the guest list by nearly half. I hadn't sent that email. Neither had my fiancé. Panicked, I called the venue immediately, demanding answers. They forwarded me the original message, and my heart sank when I saw the email address it came from. It was my sister's. I remember sitting there in my living room, staring at the screen, my hands trembling, my mind racing. Why? Why would she do this? Was her resentment so deep that she was willing to sabotage the most important day of my life? The confrontation was inevitable. When I called her, she didn't even bother denying it. She laughed a cold, sharp laugh that chilled me and said, "Now you know how it feels to have your dream wedding ruined. Maybe next time you'll remember what you owe me." My stomach dropped. My suspicions had been right all along. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't an accident. This was sabotage. And in that moment I realized I wasn't just dealing with a jealous sister. I was dealing with someone who wanted to see me fall. Someone who believed that because I hadn't given her $20,000 for her wedding, I didn't deserve happiness in mine. But what she didn't realize was that her plan to break me would backfire. Because if she thought she could humiliate me quietly, she was wrong. I wasn't going to let her lies destroy me. I was going to expose them. And when I did, the truth would tear everything apart. After I confronted my sister about the fake email, I thought maybe the shock of being caught would make her back down. I hoped naively that she would apologize, that maybe we could salvage something of our relationship before my wedding. But instead, her behavior only escalated. Within a week, another disaster hit. My florist called me in a panic, saying that my sister had come in and tried to change the entire flower order. Apparently, she told them I had reconsidered and wanted cheaper arrangements, fewer roses, fewer centerpieces, fewer details overall. Thankfully, the florist double-checked with me before finalizing anything. But the fact that my sister had gone that far, marching into a business pretending to speak on my behalf, made my blood boil. When I confronted her again, she was unapologetic. "Why should you get everything you want when I had to settle for less?" she snapped. "This is just balancing the scales. Balancing the scales." That phrase stuck in my head like a splinter. It wasn't just about jealousy anymore. She actually believed she was entitled to ruin my wedding to make up for what she felt I had taken from her. Things only got worse from there. Rumors started circulating among family members. Whispers that my fiancé and I were fighting, that we were on the verge of calling off the wedding. At first, I couldn't figure out where it was coming from, but then a cousin let it slip. My sister had been the one spreading the lies. She told people my fiancé was having doubts, that the stress of planning had us on the rocks. Some relatives even called me, worried, asking if everything was okay. I was humiliated. My private life, my engagement, was being dragged through the mud by my own flesh and blood. When I finally sat down with my parents to explain everything, showing them the fake emails, the florist's warning, the rumors, I expected them to be horrified, to finally understand how toxic my sister's behavior had become. But instead, my mother sighed and said, "She's just jealous, honey. Weddings bring out the worst in people. Try to be the bigger person." Be the bigger person? My sister was actively sabotaging me, and I was supposed to just rise above it? My father wasn't much better. He admitted she was wrong, but told me not to create more drama so close to the wedding. It was like no one wanted to face the truth, because it was easier to pretend everything was fine. Meanwhile, my sister kept finding new ways to undermine me. She accidentally texted a group chat that included some of my bridesmaids, claiming I had chosen an ugly dress color for them to wear. She forgot to pass along important details about bridal shower planning, making me look unorganized. Every move was calculated, deliberate, designed to chip away at my excitement and confidence. The breaking point came at a family dinner, when she openly mocked me in front of everyone. With a glass of wine in her hand and a fake smile plastered on her face, she said, "Well, at least if her wedding falls apart, she'll still have a pretty dress to remember it by." The room went quiet, all eyes darting between us. My chest burned with anger, but I stayed silent because I knew if I exploded there, in front of everyone, she would play the victim. But that night, I made myself a promise. I wasn't going to let her win. I wasn't going to let her lies define my wedding or my relationship. If she wanted to play games, then fine. But when the time was right, I would expose her. And when I did, she wouldn't just be the jealous sister whispering in the shadows. She'd be the liar standing in the harsh light of truth. As the wedding day drew closer, the chaos my sister created only grew. It felt like every week brought a new disaster. The months that should have been filled with excitement, anticipation, and joy turned into a battlefield where I was constantly cleaning up the mess she left behind. The first major blow came with the photographer. I had spent weeks carefully choosing someone whose style I loved, someone who could capture the emotion of the day. One morning, I woke up to an email from the photographer, politely confirming that I had decided to cancel their services. My heart stopped. I hadn't canceled anything. When I called them immediately, panicked and confused, they explained that they'd received a phone call from me, except it wasn't me. It was my sister, using my details, pretending to be me. I barely managed to convince the photographer not to book another client for that date. If I hadn't caught it in time, my entire wedding would have been left without professional photos. Then, as if that wasn't enough, the venue manager called 2 weeks before the wedding, asking if we were sure we still wanted the reception hall. Apparently, someone close to us had told them we were planning to elope instead and might not need the space anymore. My stomach turned to stone. I didn't even need to ask who it was. It felt like she was everywhere at once, pulling strings, whispering lies, setting fires that I had to put out before they consumed everything I had worked for. But it wasn't just the logistics, it was the emotional warfare, too. She knew exactly how to get under my skin. One afternoon, she called me out of the blue, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I just hope you know what you're doing," she said. "Marrying someone is serious. You wouldn't want to make the same kind of mistake I did when I settled for less." Settled for less. That's how she saw her husband less. And by extension, that's how she saw my happiness. Something she had been cheated out of, and therefore something I didn't deserve either. By then, even some of my bridesmaids were starting to crack under the tension. A couple of them asked me quietly if I was sure I wanted her in the bridal party at all. But how could I uninvite my own sister from my wedding? The drama would have exploded even bigger. And somehow, she would have twisted it to make me look like the villain. The breaking point came during my rehearsal dinner. It was supposed to be a night of calm before the storm, a small gathering with close family and friends. But halfway through, she stood up, raised her glass, and with that fake smile she wore so well, said, "Here's to my sister. May her wedding be everything mine wasn't, because apparently she thinks she deserves better than the rest of us." The room froze. My fiancé's parents looked horrified. My friends exchanged awkward glances. My parents shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. I felt the heat rising in my face, my heart pounding in my chest. She had done it again, poisoned my moment, turned my joy into humiliation. That night, lying awake in bed, I realized I couldn't keep letting her get away with this. She wasn't just being petty, she was systematically trying to ruin one of the most important days of my life. And if I didn't do something drastic, she might actually succeed. So I made a decision. I would expose her. Not in whispers, not in private confrontations that she could deny or twist, but openly, in front of the people who mattered most. I would make sure everyone saw her for who she really was. And the wedding itself would be the stage. Because if my sister wanted to play games, she was about to lose. The morning of my wedding should have been filled with nervous excitement, happy tears and laughter echoing through the bridal suite. Instead, I woke up with my stomach in knots, bracing myself for whatever my sister might try to pull. By that point, I had stopped wondering if she would sabotage me, and started wondering how. Sure enough, the first sign came before I even stepped into my dress. My hairstylist pulled me aside, whispering nervously. She said someone claiming to be a relative of the bride had called earlier that morning, telling her the appointment was canceled. My blood boiled instantly. Of course, it was her. Thankfully, the stylist trusted her instincts and showed up anyway. But that meant my suspicions were right. My sister wasn't done yet. As the ceremony drew closer, I kept scanning for signs of trouble. My bridesmaids could feel the tension rolling off me, but I refused to let her see me crack. When the music began, when I finally walked down the aisle and saw my fiancé waiting for me, for a few precious minutes, I was able to push her out of my mind. The vows, the kiss, the applause, it was everything I had dreamed of. But then came the reception. From the moment we entered the hall, I could feel her energy radiating from across the room. She was smiling, but it wasn't joy. It was that sharp, bitter grin I had come to recognize, the one that promised trouble. And sure enough, trouble came. During dinner, she made her move. She stood up, glass in hand, and asked for everyone's attention. At first, people clapped politely, expecting a sweet toast from the maid of honor. But instead, she launched into a speech that still makes my blood run cold. "Well," she began, her voice dripping with fake warmth, "we all know weddings are expensive. Some of us had to sacrifice and struggle for ours, while others," she gestured toward me with a sly smile, "had everything handed to them. Must be nice, right? To get the wedding of your dreams, without caring about the rest of us who had to settle. Gasps rippled through the room. My heart pounded in my chest, my hands clenching into fists under the table. She wasn't just throwing shade anymore, she was trying to humiliate me in front of every guest, every relative, every friend. And that's when I snapped. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor, and cut her off. "Do you all want to know the truth?" I said, my voice trembling but strong enough to carry across the room. Because my sister seems to think it's her job to ruin this day for me, just like she's been trying to ruin it for months. The room went silent. My sister's smirk faltered, but I pressed on. I laid everything out, the fake emails, the florist incident, the photographer she almost cost us, the lies she spread about me and my fiancé. I even pulled out printed proof, the emails she had sent from her own account, the texts she had sent mocking me. "This isn't about money," I said, my voice cracking as I looked around the stunned faces. "This is about jealousy. My sister has been trying to sabotage me because I didn't give her $20,000 for her wedding, and instead of letting it go, she decided to destroy mine." Gasps filled the hall. Guests turned to look at her, some whispering, others staring in disbelief. My sister's face went pale, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't decide whether to deny it or fight back. Finally, she muttered, "You're exaggerating. You always make me look bad." But it was too late. The evidence was there. The guests had seen it. My fiancé's family glared at her. My bridesmaids nodded, confirming everything I said. The mask she had worn so confidently was shattered, and all that was left was her guilt laid bare under the spotlight. She stormed out of the reception, red-faced and shaking, leaving behind whispers and stares. For the first time in months, I felt a weight lift from my chest. She hadn't ruined me. She had ruined herself. The rest of the night wasn't perfect. The tension still lingered, and my family tried desperately to smooth things over, but it was mine. My husband and I danced, laughed, and celebrated with the people who mattered. And I held my head high, because the truth was finally out. But even in that moment of relief, I knew this wasn't the end. Exposing her lies might have saved my wedding, but it had destroyed our relationship forever, and maybe that was the price I had to pay. In the weeks following the wedding, I expected my sister to call me, to apologize, or at the very least to scream at me for exposing her in front of everyone. But she didn't. She went silent. No texts, no phone calls, no attempts to explain herself. At first, the silence was deafening. Then it became liberating. But my family wasn't silent. The fallout was immediate. Relatives started calling, some to express shock at what they had seen, others to beg me to make peace. My mother was furious, not at my sister, but at me. She accused me of humiliating the family by airing dirty laundry in public. "You could have handled it quietly," she snapped. "You didn't have to ruin your own wedding with drama." Her words stung, but they also revealed something I had been ignoring for years. My family had always enabled my sister. They excused her tantrums, her selfishness, her manipulative behavior, because it was easier than confronting the truth. And now that truth was finally undeniable, they were still trying to protect her, instead of acknowledging the damage she had caused. My father was more subdued, but his disappointment was clear. He didn't say much, only that he wished things had gone differently, but I could see it in his eyes. He wanted me to forgive, to smooth it over, to fall back into the old pattern where my sister could do whatever she wanted without consequence. But I couldn't. Not this time. For the first time in my life, I cut my sister off completely. I blocked her number, unfollowed her on every platform, and told my parents I wanted no contact until she took responsibility for what she had done. My mother cried, my father frowned, but I stood firm. I had spent months fighting just to protect my happiness, and I wasn't about to let her back into my life to poison it again. The absence was painful at first. I'd catch myself thinking of her during quiet moments, remembering the good times we'd had growing up, late-night talks, shared secrets, laughter that once felt genuine. But then I'd remind myself of the fake emails, the canceled vendors, the cruel toast at my rehearsal dinner. Those memories hardened me, reminded me why I had made my choice. And slowly, life moved on. My husband and I settled into married life, building a home filled with love and laughter. My friends, those who had stood by me through the chaos, remained my support system, reminding me that family isn't always defined by blood. Some relatives distanced themselves, uncomfortable with the rift, but I no longer cared. For the first time, I felt free from my sister's shadow. But the scars remain. Weddings are supposed to be remembered for joy, not betrayal. And while I cherish the moments I shared with my husband that day, I'll never forget the way my sister tried to ruin it. Her sabotage left a mark, not just on the wedding, but on our relationship forever. Sometimes I wonder if she regrets it, if she ever lies awake at night, realizing that her jealousy cost her a sister. But whether she does or not, it doesn't matter anymore. I've learned that protecting my peace means setting boundaries, even with people who share my blood. And if there's one thing I know for certain, it's this. My sister didn't ruin my wedding. She ruined herself. Because when you try to destroy someone else's happiness out of spite, all you really do is expose the truth about who you are. And the truth about her is something I'll never forget.